The perfect information news.
All the stories that are fit to print.
Written straight onto your eardrums. Vassal, banging the tom-toms for online or brick-and-mortar supporter?
Essen 2017. All the spiel from the Ruhrpott.
So, Georgios, welcome to the news.
Yes, I do like the things you've done with the studio while I was away. It's all very glittery and see-through, except for, well, walls.
Well, it's all fake, Georgios, isn't it? It's all fake news.
Actually, see, I've just seen this interview, and apparently he came up with the word fake. That he was sort of the first person to just, term the news as fake. We might have to pay royalties.
Who, Orange Twatman?
Yes, Orange Twatman the first.
He's trying to trademark the word fake. He invented the word fake in connection with news.
Well, yes. You know how he is.
Anyway, this is board game news. This isn't fucking Orange Twatman Bulletin number 9. There's plenty of people far more qualified than us, Georgios, doing bulletins on the big fat Orange Twatman.
I do like the fact that we found, our nickname for him, which is Orange Twatman. I find that very,
It's grounded. It's grounded in the kind of intellectual, satirical rigor that we're known so much for.
Well, yeah, see, I feel obligated to sort of apologize, send out my apologies to oranges because, they're actually quite tasty. To twats, even though it's not the nicest of words, and to man, basically, because, oh boy, that man is an embarrassment to man.
I share a fucking gender with that asshole. It's a nightmare. But anyway, our first news story, Georgios, comes courtesy of co-media producer, nay colleague, Tom Vassal over at the Dice Tower, who's been causing something of a furore over subsequent weeks concerning the humble, friendly local game store. So rather than go over what he said, I thought we might talk about, firstly, do you think he has a point, though? Whether you're talking about his statements last week claiming that certain types of game stores really have no place, or this week, which seems like something of a retraction.
Well, I think originally he seems to have been venting his frustration, as we all want to do, at a very, very bad experience at a local game store. Now, luckily, I haven't been to any game stores that were particularly bad. I have been to a few game stores that were run by people who just weren't very good salesmen or just not particularly friendly or nice people, just trying to sort of sell you complete crap for the sake of making a buck, which is not something I usually find here in Berlin, but that has happened. But none of the other experiences that were alluded to in his segment really struck a chord with me. I have never had these kind of exclusionary experiences in board game shops. They have never been particularly superbly inclusive either. Nothing that would sort of, in my eyes, justify getting really upset and just sort of questioning the justification for keeping all these, for supporting all these stores. Now, ultimately, I think the biggest issue is that originally he was sort of questioning the general attitude amongst gamers to support the local game store because game stores have an important function in society and in the hobby more. They are running the risk of being sort of pushed aside, marginalized, and sort of made to disappear due to more appealing offers online. And he more or less made the same argument. Later, the following week, he sort of took a different position where he praised certain elements of game stores. But ultimately, I think he wasn't wrong in kind of, as anyone really should. He basically asked, why do we support game stores? Is that something we want to do? Or is that something we just blindly follow because our hobby the hive mind of the hobby seems to support this idea that we should support local game stores?
I'm going to tackle this in a twofold way. Firstly, I have any sort of shop that specializes has this proclivity for being exclusionary. So for me, when I bought guitars from shops or when I've gone into music shops, I've always felt like a bit of a twat because I'm not a very good guitarist and I don't really know what I'm doing. And sometimes you go into some shops and you say, look, you got to help me. I need a set of strings. I don't know what strings I use. And they go, oh yeah, what kind of guitar you got? And da 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 da. Sometimes they look at you as if you're the most terrific idiot. And so I don't think it's specialty. It's a problem of the specialty shop, not the problem of the game shop. I don't think specifically, but I've never had a negative experience in a game shop. And there's a very good reason for that. Is because I hardly ever go into game shops. Oh, now, we discussed this before on the show.
You're one of those people, aren't you?
I am, absolutely. I see game shops as nice to have a browse, but fundamentally anachronistic. They don't do anything that online portals offer. My introduction to games is not through the game shop. It was through YouTube. It was through game nights. It was through meetup.com. I have no issue really with game shops closing because they offer me nothing. Now, am I unique in this, or do you think what I'm saying, my experience is valid?
I think Tom from last week will agree with you. Tom from this week might not. Well, the thing that struck me most with both of these videos or both these segments was this idea, these underlying notions that bad game stores deserve to perish, deserve to close.
And what's wrong with this? What's wrong with that as a concept? Bad game stores deserving to perish.
Well, to quote Will Money or Bill Money or whatever he's called, deserve's got nothing to do with it. Ultimately,
do you think they offer an indispensable social function for the hobby that if we were to lose them, the hobby would lose something?
Does anyone?
Well, the question I ask, so for me, if I didn't have meetup.com,
right,
I think my gaming would go through the floor in terms of regularity. It would be much, much more difficult to arrange things. And a lot of friends that I currently have that are gamer friends, I would never have met before.
Right.
Meetup. Having Meetup as that portal, as that liaison between people, has made me the gamer that I am. No game store has ever done that.
Well, yes, but don't you think there are enough people who do not share this tendency, this veering towards the online connection, and are more likely to find a game shop?
This is exactly what I'm asking you. Is the game store an anachronism? Do they still serve a function in the community? Or do they need to diversify? Is the games shop that's just a game shop still a viable proposition?
I think, and this has nothing to do with the hobby or any hobby really, I think the pure retail store is an anachronism due to economics, due to the fact how we distribute commodities these days. Online shops are basically ubiquitous now. Apps are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. We don't need the kind of, we try to find reasons to keep shops alive, to sort of keep people in business, give people jobs, give people some way to earn money. Because if you were to look purely at the numbers, it's always cheaper to buy from Amazon. It's always getting information about a new game, getting it explained. It's all available free online. And it just comes down to the simple fact that economics, and I think this is ultimately the big mistake that we as a society seem to cling to, is not about numbers, it's about people. And the fact that you can argue that, a bad game shop should just close always means people are going to lose their jobs. People are going to lose the way to sort of earn money and, have a decent life. And I find it, the casualness, the sort of just the throwaway line of just, well, I don't care. I don't like to shop there. They can close for all I care. That I don't like that, basically.
Well, the attitude I can agree with you on, but the fact is people always use Amazon as an excuse. But if I shop online, I have used Amazon, so I would be absolutely disingenuous to say I don't, but I shop at my friend Heiko, who sponsored the podcast's online shop. He's just a guy who's making money from selling games. He happens to not have to pay rent on a premises and all of this sort of stuff, so he can sell them cheaper. But he's not some big evil conglomeration who's seeking to strangle people. And, also, people never mourned the buggy whip manufacturer I mean, I'm not defending anything either way, but I think there's a strong argument to suggest. Oh, I'm lying. I am defending something. I think there's a strong argument to suggest that the game shop as simple retail venue with possibilities to play are becoming a thing of the past. And to say that is not a problem.
Yes, obviously, game shops will benefit, or anybody going into business, selling games will benefit from either a strong online presence or pure online presence if it were by the whims of Asmodee, or at least diversifying the shop, making it a cafe, making it a social hub for whatever reason, where you can also buy games or something like that. But that's just the way things have always been when it came to any economic activity. You always look for your small
Well, the
niche.
point is, no one ever defends game shops as retail establishments. That's never the argument, is it? It's always as a social hub. This is why we should support these people, because they offer a way to bring people together. And I wonder now, with the internet, with Meetup, with Facebook, whether that function just simply isn't being served well enough by that model. And maybe the model should change. And it's not an economic question, it's a social question. People are doing it for themselves rather than leaving it to the organizational skills of a person in an establishment.
Ultimately, I do occasionally frequent game shops here in Berlin. I do talk to the people there. That's how I get my great news, behind the scene news about, the industry on the retailer side in Germany, at least. I do know that quite a lot of people, not quite our age, not quite of our, say, computer savviness, do need these kind of shops to wander into and see something on the shelf and pick it up and ask the person behind the counter to go, what is this? What is this game? I like the name. I like the look of it. Explain it to me. Is this something I want?
Well, I think that's what contradicts the actual arguments that are used, right? Because everyone talks, oh, it's for the community, it's for the hobby, it's helping. But actually, I think the people who benefit most from the game shops are not hobbyists. It's people who don't really know anything about games and need their experience curating, need their purchases curating. If there's an argument for the game shop, it's for the non-gamer, not for the gamer, right?
Maybe. I think the thing that doesn't sit well with me, different. Let me phrase it differently. I think the reason why gamers specifically are sort of looking for reasons to keep the game shop alive, looking for explanations like, it helps the community and it's a social hub for gamers. Again, my experience has been very, very localized to this city here. Oh, actually, the 9 months I spent in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and there were all kinds of social hubs where you could find people if you were a gamer. I think the reason why we as hobbyists look for these answers is because we are not actually willing to tackle the big question of why should we save retailers. The answer is simply...
And do you have an answer?
Yes. It's a job. We need a job, man. Unless we have the universal basic income, people need a way to get by. And if you continue to sort of find ways...
But I don't think that's necessarily a valid... I mean,
I think it is.
Shop people, they're not government-run organizations. These aren't charities.
No.
These are organizations that are running within the capitalist system as capitalist enterprises.
Not quite, no.
Well, of course they are. I mean, I can't think of any...
I think you're conflating capitalism with free market participation. That's not quite the same.
I mean, who should I support? If we're talking about supporting people, I don't want to seem small-minded and parochial, but I'd rather give money to my friend than some guy I don't know, right?
Yeah.
My friend just happens to run an online shop. He happens to run a great community game night. I mean, I guess, no, correct me if I'm wrong. You can completely tell me I've misinterpreted what you said, but it seems to me that you're saying the reason to support game stores is as a social obligation to keep people in jobs. Well, they're just another retail for profit organization. I'd rather support my friend than a guy I don't know. Nepotistic? True, but I'm not the great humanitarian here.
Well, yes, but your original argument was basically, when we started this discussion, was not whether you should support your friend. The question was whether stores are anachronistic and deserve to die.
Well, that was my question. I mean, I obviously, I think you can gather by the way I've been talking that I kind of think that argument holds water. I think the game shop we go to, Okay? The people there are lovely people, but I kind of don't see the point of the place. It seems anachronistic to me. It doesn't offer me anything that I wouldn't get by going to YouTube or going to Thursday game night.
I don't know. I think most of these decisions aren't zero sum. Ultimately, though, you buy from a shop. Oh, if the only reason you look at anything anyone does for a living is how it benefits you, you might be losing sight of the bigger picture.
Yes, but I can't patronize every shop.
No, nobody's asking you to. But I mean, I'm just.
And I can't. I mean, especially me personally, because I have no fucking money. I can't spend 25% more just because I like the guy behind the counter, or I think the shop is nice.
No, but that was not the argument I was making. I was arguing against the idea that it's okay to let shops die.
Then what was the argument you were making?
My argument was that it's not okay to let shops die. It's I think it's an economic issue basically. If we, like I said, I think the point that I feel uneasy with is the idea that shops deserve to die because they don't benefit me personally, and that runs counter to my understanding of what it means to live in a society.
But I think fundamentally, if the problem is, then what do I do? It's a shop. There are charities that don't benefit me personally, but I have no issue giving money to those charities because the shops benefit the people who run the shops, right? I can't go to every shop. I mean, that's the
But
point.
nobody's asking you
so
to. Why are you leaping from letting shops thrive or live as they are instead of calling for their death? Why aren't you making the same argument about charities?
Of course, I'm not calling for their death. That's a different thing, isn't it? What I'm saying is, I guess what I'm saying is it's more understandable that these places are dying as bookshops died. And is it sad? Maybe. But times change and things move on. And as I said, the people who make cartwheels aren't doing a roaring trade anymore,
But then ultimately, what are the things that you can bring to the table if you're a retailer can support you? This is what it comes down to. It's not rich, money-grabbing, penny-saving shop owners trying to, overcharge you and laughing maniacally because, they got €5 more out of you than they paid for the game. It's people making a living. And ultimately, I'm not suggesting you should run out and only buy thousands of games from your local game show and patronize everyone you see on the street. But I'm just saying indifference is not the answer here. Indifference is ultimately a problem.
Okay, this is the kind of show where obviously we don't agree and we don't come to a consensus. So you, the lovely listener, the news consumer, come onto the Guild. Write what you think about this issue. Do you think I'm a heartless bastard, or do you think Georgios is a deluded commie? Come onto the Guild and tell us. All right, Georgios, something slightly less contentious.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Essen Spiel 2017.
Yeah, see, already, you keep calling it Essen, but you don't call Gen Con Indianapolis Gen Con, do you?
But I'm just calling it...
Yes?
I'm calling it what everyone calls it. They call it San Diego Comic Con, don't they?
They do, because there's more than one.
Yeah, there's more than one Spiel.
Really? Where are the others?
There's Pankow Spielertreff in Berlin.
No, that's not quite... That's not entirely the same level. I mean,
anyway, all right, Georgios. Yeah. Tell us what you're most excited for about Spiel this year.
This is going to sound trickly and needlessly sentimental, but kind of the people. That's what I'm most excited about. I just like being surrounded by so many like-minded or vaguely like-minded people excited about games and basically traversing the halls of their personal mecca.
And yeah, for me, because especially now the podcast has grown and we know more people and we know people who are coming and exhibiting for the first time, people bringing games for the first time. And of course, I'm going down in a big group of people from Berlin anyway. Primarily, that's the thing I'm most excited about, is getting out there, seeing people that I only see at Essen, people that I've never met before, that are virtual friends of mine, and that primarily, they will punch me, Georgios. probably not at first, but probably after I've had a couple of boozy woozes and some of the free mead. And then I'm basically, I have the most punchable face in the Western Hemisphere.
Interestingly enough, people can make up their own mind just how punchable your face is. I actually don't know when this show is going to release, and I have no idea when the video is going to release, but I'm just going to put it out there. When this show releases, the video is either imminent or already out there. And by video, I mean our top 10 anticipated games list on YouTube.
All right, so to carry on, we went over this a bit in the video, but let's expand a bit. What do you think of the Rafter Games this year?
I'm not sure. I've sort of followed some of the comments about this very same question from other people going the 4th, 5th, 19th time, whatever. And in general, people seem to be not really clamoring for individual games so much as just excited to see all of them at once.
Yeah, there's no great headline grabber this year. I mean, even last year you had Feast for Odin, which had been demoed the year before, and so was, expected, and people were, eagerly anticipating it. All of the sort of big Euro games have kind of come out of the blue and sort of been announced in the last 6 weeks, but unless, I guess, you kept your ear very close to the ground, I didn't know about Altiplano, I didn't know about Nussfjord, I didn't know about Heaven and Ale, you know what I mean?
Oh no, Nussfjord was, I think that was a surprise to the publisher themselves that they actually got it done in time. I think that was basically the tone of the post on Facebook they made, which is where I think the news first broke. So, quite a few of those games coming out at Spiel this year, maybe last minute editions, or just, apparently, as we've heard from other publishers, the rush to get a game out in time for Essen happens every year, and every year it's a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Gamble. If you're going to get enough of your games printed in time and get them to Essen to actually have a profitable show.
I mean, I never thought I'd live in a life where I spoke to people about air freight. And I literally speak to people about air freight, and the two words air freight have become sort of part of my lexicon, which is the bloody weirdest thing that's ever happened to me in my life,
Oh, well, that's fine then, Getting used to air freight, if that's the weirdest thing that happened to you, you're fine.
Well, I don't live in this world of normal people, you know what I mean? And so when people talk about air freight and mortgages and insurance liability, I haven't got a bloody idea what they're talking about. If they're talking about lounging about and YouTube memes, then I'm all over it, you know what I mean? But I think this year really is. So last year I found was the sort of, so 2015 was the year of the big hitter. You had Time Stories and you had Pandemic Legacy. Last year seemed to me, just from my perspective, was the year of the quirky game, where you had a lot like They Who Were Eight, which was set on poems, and then you had The Ravens of Three Sahasri and things like this. Whereas this year seems to me the solid year of the Euro designer with Michael Kiesling and Rainer Knizia and Stefan Feld and Uwe Rosenberg and the Brandts and all of these kind of people releasing games. It seems a big year for big, meaty Euro games. Am I right?
Well, I think last year might, your perspective might be slightly skewed because those are the games you remember. But last year you had the new edition of Through the Ages, right?
That was the year before. That was 2015.
Really? Well, what was Codenames? Was that?
Oh, I bought it 2015.
All right. Yeah, but. And
also Codenames was 2015, yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe I just forgot 2016 even existed.
Yeah, I mean, actually 2016 in terms of games was pretty nondescript. I think Feast for Odin was probably the biggest thing that came out that year.
Well, wait, when was Scythe?
Well, Scythe was a Kickstarter release. It didn't come out at Essen, so.
Yeah, no, but, I do feel like we're missing probably a bunch of.
That was
great
2015.
Games.
Scythe was 2015, early 2016.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think this year, you're right. I think maybe the reason why we're seeing more of these Euro game designers being more present in the buzz leading up to Spiel is maybe because there are no non-Euro game designers kind of pitting something against them. There's Pandemic Season 2, of course, but for some reason, even though, I mean, like I say in the video,
Well, it hasn't been announced yet. This is the thing. It hasn't been announced. People don't know. I would be absolutely gobsmacked if it's not there. But Z-Man have not released anything about the games they're releasing at Essen this year.
Well,
yet, so.
yes. Well, actually, no. Some details have trickled out. First of all, the Friedrich Merz Verlag, the guys running Spiel, have just released, like a few hours ago, released the list of all the games that will be available, all the new releases that will be available, and Pandemic is listed, even though without a price yet. And the street date for Pandemic Season 2 is the 26th of October, which is the first official day of Spiel. So I think they haven't done a big announcement, but it's pretty settled that it's going to be there. It's just we just don't know how much money they're going to rip out of our wallets. I'm guessing 80 quid.
Georgios Panayotides, investigative journalist.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's some fine journalistic work there, Georgios. Fine journalistic work. Yeah, I mean, my worry, I would not be surprised if Pandemic is 80 euros. Would not surprise me one bit.
I would be very disappointed. I would be laughing all my way out of the hall if it was 100, but, maybe I could do with a little chuckle now and then.
I mean, I bought Pandemic Season 1 for 50. The next year it was 70. I would not be surprised. It's minimum 80 euros. If it's any less than that, I would be surprised. Because one thing I've noticed about the companies that Asmodee acquire is their games seem to increase in price.
Yes, unfortunately.
All right, well, you there on the other end of the line. I'm really good at this stuff, Georgios.
Amazing.
On the other end, listening to this through your earphones. Tell us what you're excited about for Spiel. Come on the guild. Speak to us. Oh, I've got one more announced. Oh, I'll put that in the next bit.
Excellent. Do that.
Ooh, Georgios, that new shirt is gorgeous.
It's the perfect information news.
All right, so this is the section of the show where we talk about us. We focus on just what we're doing. So, for instance, I ate some food and that.
Have we ever not talked about us?
No, but we pretend we're talking about other subjects. You pretend to be this, like, humanitarian and everything. And in fact, you're just talking about you all the time.
Yes, I am.
I mean, it's clear I'm fixated with my own junk. But you, Georgios, you hide your narcissism under a veneer of social philanthropio, which is a word.
It is now, apparently.
All right, so first thing on Perfect Information News, we're carrying on from Essen. Mm-hmm. So this is a brief thing I put on the Guild. Thursday at 3:00, I'm going to be at the ale stand in Hall 2. Is that correct, Georgios?
If you say so. I actually do not register the ale stand when I'm there.
It's in the RPG hall. So I think it's Hall 2. 3:00 on Thursday. I'm going to be having a beer, and just if any of you are listening, think, ooh, I'd like to go and see what Ben's like when he's a drunken twat. Then come along at 3:00 and you'll get to witness that, and probably get to witness Georgios shaking his head.
But by your own admission, you're going to be drunk throughout the entire show, so they could just walk up to you at any point during the show.
At any point.
Right.
At any point.
But you're just letting them know where you're going to be at this particular moment.
Exactly. So, Georgios.
Yes.
So going on then. So let's talk about what we have planned for the further development of the show over the short term.
Ooh, things we have planned.
So give us a précis of the Patreon update that you made yesterday.
Oh, right. Yes, I made a Patreon update. It was a longer one. All kinds of things were mentioned in them. One of them was that we might need to rejigger the rewards slightly, because some of them are don't really make much sense right now. We have one reward level that suggests a Google Hangout to talk about upcoming topics. And since there's only one Patreon willing to, join us on a Hangout, I think it makes more sense to sort of change it around a little bit and open our reviews to our listeners, or rather to our Patreons, and allow them to suggest a game for us to review. And if it gets enough votes, I was going to suggest something like more than 51.9%, because that's not a majority to base any meaningful decision on, we'll review that game.
Saying that with caveats, if it's one of those €150 Eagle Griffin Vital Lacerda games, might not happen. That's all I'm saying. So we're going to rejigger that. So let's talk about the RPG show, Georgios. What's the plans for that?
Yes, the RPG show. We are going to talk about role-playing games, which is, the long-form version of an RPG. It's not a rocket-propelled grenade. We are basically, I think, we're going to dive in by talking about our history as role players, and so you can, as an invested listener, you can sort of see where we're coming from, our experiences we've had before we started talking about them, and maybe our differing stances on all kinds of issues, which I think is going to be a recurring theme on this RPG show because it's literally never been an issue up until this point during our podcasting history, is it? Yes, pretty much. I think so far we've agreed on everything we've ever put out on the air. We're like the Wonder Twins. Now we're going to go into uncharted territory and talk about made up stuff and made up worlds with halfly made up words. Yeah, and I've reached out to, now I'm going to slightly give away. So the idea we had for the first show was talking about the role-playing game that sort of made us role-playing gamers. Now, Georgios was a serious role-playing gamer. As a companion piece, I want to interview Sandy Peterson, who designed what is definitely my most formative role-playing game and a game that really helped me. So I've written to him. He hasn't written back to me. I only wrote to him yesterday, but tweet at Sandy Peterson. Ask him to speak to the Perfect Information podcast, and fingers crossed that would be a nice companion piece to support the first RPG show. Yeah, no, I completely support this idea. We should definitely do accost him for us so we don't have to do it ourselves in case, he doesn't like that, so we can sort of distance ourselves from our listeners, if that should cause bad blood with Sandy Peterson. We like online mobs. That's our favourite kind of mob. Well, wishing mob and stuff. Okay, so the live stream, Georgios. Can you clarify the live stream? Yes, let me quote the opening line of the live stream Patreon comment. Oh boy. Yes. It's not quite as easy as we thought. But it is gonna happen, right? It's just a matter of getting things together. Exactly. It's definitely going to happen. There's absolutely no question about it. We just need to get our heads screwed on straight and sort of figure out the logistics, figure out time and place and setup and stuff like that, and sort of read into everything that goes into creating such a live stream, at least on a level that's watchable for people with eyes. We're definitely not going to finish all that before Spiel. There's absolutely no way we can do that. We do hope that we'll get it done at some point in November. That's the current sort of goal we're looking at. And finally, on Perfect Information News, Georgios, will you tell the listeners about what you've been busy beavering away at for the last sort of 27 years? Yes, I am editing a video of us jabbering on about top 10 anticipated at Spiel this year. We both sort of came up with two lists with absolutely no crossovers, which I thought was telling and amusing. And it's just more evidence that we absolutely fundamentally agree on everything. Exactly. Yeah, I agree that you should mention that one game so I could mention that other game. I'm editing away, which is amazing because I don't know anything about this stuff and I am no good at it. So it's safe to say there'll be a video out with our top 10 expected games for Essen, before Essen. How close to before Essen? Well, that's anyone's guess, but fingers crossed, it'll be soon. Pretty much, yeah. So basically, just to finish up, we want to ask that if you've got anything you'd like us to talk about, any news ideas, anything like this, please write to infoperfected@gmail.com. Yes. And how else can people contact us, Georgios? They can send all their flames and hate mail to iambenmaddox@gmail.com. They can visit our website, which is infoperfected.com, where we occasionally post reviews, like written reviews of games that we have reviewed through the writing of said review. Then there's, pictures on Instagram, Perfect Information. There's our Facebook group, which is Perfect Information Podcast. And of course, the already mentioned guild on Board Game Geek, the Guild of Perfect Information. It's number 2348. We have a bunch of people there. Most of them are smarter than me, and they all like to tell me about it.
Well, you made this show possible by backing us on Patreon. You gave us the impetus to do this show. So if you want more stuff from us, if you want more videos, if you want more content, if you just want more value for that hard-earned money that you give to us, tell your friends. Think about contributing to our Patreon, and fingers crossed we can all gallop into the sunset together and kiss each other on the faces.